My lighting changed right as I pressed the button. Of course it did. Welcome back, Crescents. I have no idea what is going on with the lighting right now. I don't know. Can't seem to fix it. Doesn't matter what angle I do, where I sit in the room. It's just not working out for me. And you know what? It's probably because I waited until nighttime to make this video. I am just gonna go ahead and get right into it. We're telling a story time today, and I know I said I had other plans, but you know what? I just decided that my channel is my channel. I'm gonna do what I want when I decide that I want to do it. Right now, this is what I feel like doing. I'm gonna do another story time, and I'm sorry if you're so tired of my stupid story times. But you know what? Deal with it. You're the one that subscribed to me. Today, I'm gonna tell a story time about an old, crazy roommate that I used to have when I lived in Orange County. And I'm just gonna tell a bunch of story times about how crazy Orange County people are. I'm gonna take this off because I keep seeing my own reflection in my glasses. So I guess this story kind of starts out with me moving out of this house and moving into a new apartment. And I was moving into a new apartment with 3 other guys, and we alone, because we were really young and weren't making enough money to be able to live in an apartment, needed one more roommate. So I decided to ask my best friend, we'll call her Ashley, to move in with us because we needed to somehow make the cut. Now, mind you, this was a small, not a big, a small 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and there were gonna be 5 of us living in it. So the deal was that 3 of us would live in the living room. 1 would be paying the majority of the rent in the master bedroom that had its own bathroom, and then 1 person would be living in the other bedroom, which had to share a bathroom with the rest of us. And he was paying like $400 a month, and then the guy in the master bedroom was paying like $700 or something like that. And then the 3 of us that were staying in the living room were paying like $290 a month, which was a steal considering the previous place that I just moved out of, I was paying $550 a month for. But I don't think that that was worth it because of the person that I was sharing space with. Not the other person, I'm not even gonna bother talking about him right now, but this girl, Ashley. At first it was all fine and dandy, and we were best friends, mind you, for years beforehand, like 3 years or something like that. I kind of like had off feelings about her on and off for like the majority of the time that we were friends, but I kind of just thought that like maybe she was just a little awkward, whatever. She was a little bit psycho, and I knew that, and I kind of had an idea of what I would be getting myself into moving in with her, but not really. And just silly little things would happen with us. Like, for instance, I was working a Starbucks kiosk inside of a grocery store at the time. That being said, I would often have to get up at 4:45 a.m. so that I could be at work at 5:30 a.m. That was only giving myself 15 minutes to get ready. She was a night owl, so she would often go out way late at night and then come back at early hours in the morning and not even care. So like I sat down with her one day and asked her like, hey, if you're gonna go out late at night, like I understand that we're both sharing a space and everything, and you should be able to do what you want, but you're also sharing a space, so you should have a little bit of common courtesy, you know? I didn't put it that way, but I said something along those lines. And I asked her if there was any possibility that if I got earplugs, that she could try and come in quietly and just be quiet. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. And little things would happen, you know, where I would wake up and there would be a new guy staying the night in her bed every single night. It was almost like we were compensating space for another person, even if it was a new person each night, you know? that got a little bit annoying after a while. I kind of brought that up to her. I was like, I really don't feel comfortable sharing a space with you if there's going to be somebody in my room every single night that I don't even know, and I don't even know if I can like get up and get dressed because you have to go through my space to get to your space, which she had put up a one of those folding walls or whatever, to be able to give her own self privacy. I asked her like, hey, can we like not have somebody stay the night every single night, or if you do, just have them sleep on the couch or whatever. And I'll include a picture here if I can find a picture of what my room looked like at the time, and I'll try and include a picture of what her area looked like at the time if I can find one. She's like, okay, yeah, I'll see what I can do or whatever. And you know, I'm a very timid person, so when I ask somebody to do something once, I don't like to have to ask them to do it again, and most of the time I won't. I'll just deal with it. So it just ended up being one of those situations where she's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just, you know, I'll deal with it, and she just brushed it off and then didn't even do anything, you know? And so there was this one night, mind you, I had asked her to be quiet when she comes in at night, and this specific night, I remember right before she was leaving, reminding her, be quiet before you come in and I'll be wearing my earplugs and da-da-da, right? So she's like, oh yeah, okay. And she goes out and, you know, she's 21, so she goes out and she goes to a bar and she gets drunk. It's like 2 a.m. and I have to be up at 4:45 or something. And next thing I know, like, all I can hear through my earplugs is like this high-pitched talking and like what almost sounded like whining coming through my earplugs. And I literally sat there like tossing and turning for what seemed like an hour at this point because of the noise that was going through my head. And like I mentioned before in my previous videos, I think I'm a light sleeper. I wake up to everything, even if it's the slightest noise. So, yeah, I heard that even through my earplugs, and I got really super frustrated. I might have been a little bit out of line with this one, but I was already so frustrated with the things this girl was doing that like I was just done in this moment. Like I had to be up at 4:45, I had to be at work, and then I still had to work a full 8 hours. So I pull my earplugs out and I literally start screaming at her, and I'm just like, I almost said her name. I'm just like, Ashley, I told you that you need to be quiet when you come in, and you promised me that you would. I am really frustrated right now, especially since you probably have someone here, considering the fact that you're talking. I have my earplugs in, like I said I would. Now it's your job to do your part. And the next thing I know, she's like screaming at me, but I already put my earplugs back in my ears at this point, so I couldn't hear what she was saying. I just knew she was screaming. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I roll over and I go back to bed. And at that point, it really does quiet down. I'm like, okay. I, you know, wake up, get ready for work, and go to work and work my shift and whatever. I come home, and this like scared the crap out of me. But I come home and I'm like hanging out, whatever, doing my thing, cleaning my space. And she's in her room and she goes, like, I can't even see her. She's on the other side of her folding wall or whatever, and she goes, hey, I'm sorry about last night. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I was just super frustrated and just really, you know, wanted my sleep, and I'm hardly getting any sleep being in this living room and trying to make it into a room. She's like, okay, well, I lost my front teeth last night. I'm like, you what? And she goes, yeah, I lost my front teeth. Want to see? I'm like, okay, sure. And I go into her space and I look at her and she smiles at me, and the 2 front teeth that she has here, they're not completely gone, but they're halved. Like literally, like she broke them in half. And I'm like, what happened? And she's like, oh, well, you know, I went out and I, got drunk with my friends out at a bar, and I stupidly decided that it would be a great idea to jump on the back of my drunk friend also and have him give me a piggyback ride without him knowing, without his consent. and we both tumbled forward and I smacked my face on the ground. You are so stupid. That is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard, because when you're drunk, you don't have balance as it is. Everybody knows that. I mean, it's in all the movies. I've experienced it. She's likely experienced it because she was drinking on a nightly basis at that point. Like, she should have known better. But this girl, she was the queen of being a stupid blonde. She was the epitome of why stupid blonde jokes exist. Okay? Just leave it there. I'm not going to go into detail about how dumb she was because the story is enough as it is. Anyway, you know, little things like that would happen, and she and I are living in a house with three other guys that are our age, mind you, so they're like 21 years old. I don't know if you've ever lived with a 21-year-old guy, but they're not exactly the cleanest thing in the entire world, and I was living with three of them, mind you. So there was that. There was always trash everywhere. The place was never vacuumed, and there were always dishes in the sink, and they were constantly yelling at each other because I had to clean a dish to, you know, be able to eat something out of for myself or whatever. It was just like super frustrated. I don't know what's going on with me right now, you guys, but I'm like out of breath from telling this story. So please excuse that. Anyway, so this day comes and I'm going out there looking for a new job because I can't stand whatever is going on with my current job or whatever. And I had fought with Ashley about how she needs to get another job because somebody's moving out and we need her to start contributing more so that we can actually keep the place that we're living in. And she like yelled at me and said, no, this is the absolute most that I can afford and whatever. And she was literally refusing to go out and get another job. So what I did, because I was already frustrated with my job, I went out and I got myself a different, better paying job that day. And it was literally just to prove her wrong. So keep in mind, when this happened, we already had some altercations earlier in the week, or maybe even the day prior. I went out and I went to my interview and I got the job, and I was starting to get paid like $3 more an hour than I was getting paid because of this job. And I'm like super excited, actually in a good mood for once, because this place was really not the best place to be living. I come back ready to tell everybody what's going on, and Ashley doesn't even bother to ask how my day was or anything like she always does. And I'm like, okay, something's wrong. And she comes up to me and she goes, can I talk to you for a moment? And I'm like, okay. And she goes, oh no, this happened before I even went to my interview. So like I had just gotten a call back and I was supposed to go to an interview that day. So that's what happened. And anyway, so I'm like super excited, ready to tell everybody what's going on, that I'm about ready to leave for my interview or whatever, and then grocery shop and then come back. And she doesn't even ask how my day was. And she like comes up to me and she goes, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And she's like,
the house can't look like this.
I'm like, what do you mean the house can't look like this? And she goes,
you can't let the house look like this. You can't let the house get this messy. You can't let the house be this bad.
and I'm like, what do you mean you? This is not my fault. I always clean my dishes. I always vacuum my floors. I always pick up my trash. What do you mean you can't? And she goes,
you can't let the house get this bad.
and I looked at her and I was like, you know what? Whatever, Ashley. I have an interview to go to. We're done here. And she's like trying to stop me and continuing to yell at me or whatever. And I just grab my keys and I book it. And I get out of there, go to my interview, land the interview, land the job. I'm super stoked and I start grocery shopping, grabbing everything that I need for the house. And I start heading back to the house, and like I walk into the kitchen, I start unloading my groceries, and she comes back to me and she's like,
I need to talk to you.
and I'm like, I'm not talking to you unless you can talk to me like an adult. And she goes,
I can talk to you like an adult.
I was like, okay. So I turn around and I still give her a stern look, but I let her know I'm listening, you know? And she looks at me again and she's like,
you can't let the house get this bad.
and I'm like, we're done. So I try to go past her and she grabs me by the arms and I'm like, get off of me, you know? And she's like,
you can't let the house get this bad.
and I said, don't block my way, I'm leaving. And she grabs me again and she goes,
you can't let the house get this bad.
so I push her off of me and I run to my room, literally crying at this point. And all of the boys that are sitting out on the patio smoking their cigarettes or drinking their beers, whatever they're doing, you know, they all come running in and they're like, what's going on, you know? And I'm just like still in my room and she's like trying to tell them, you know, what's going on. And one of them convinces her that she needs to call the cops and they didn't even bother to ask me what happened, you know? And like, if they had heard my side of the story, they would definitely believe that I should have been the one to call the cops. Because she grabbed me, she blocked me from leaving my kitchen to be able to do what I need to do in my house, whatever. So she's like calling the cops and the cops arrive and of course they take my side because I'm the one that was in the right, you know. It was self-defense, some penal code, whatever, that you can't block a person from their path in their own home. She like finally like starts to calm down and apologizes to me and she goes, you know,
if I hurt you in any way, I can tend to your wounds.
and I said, you know what, Ashley, you've done enough. And I turn around and I go to my room and she goes,
okay, well, I'm gonna go hang out at the mall for the day because I don't wanna be here anymore.
I'm like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So like I go down to the front office and they tell me, despite the lease that I had signed that specifically stated that I can get out of my lease at any moment if I so desired, as long as the lease was still open with somebody else. I went down there and I asked them if I could get off the lease, and they said,
nobody can get off the lease.
and I'm like, what do you mean nobody can get off the lease? And they're like,
well, we're under new management now, so the rules have changed. You can't get off the lease without a restraining order.
well, that's not what I said.
They said, well, that's the rules.
I'm like, okay. So there's probably some law out there that states that that's illegal or something, so I didn't even bother looking into it. But, so I'm like, okay, well, I obviously have grounds for getting a restraining order so that either I can get off the lease or she can get off the lease. So I go down to the courthouse and I go to small claims and I try to like file this restraining order with them and get a temporary one so I can get her off of the lease or get me off the lease or something. And they wouldn't even give me a temporary one because I didn't have any proof, any pictures or anything. I'm calling her in the process because it says on the paperwork that you need to inform the other person that you are filing for a restraining order. So I call her and it also said if this person tries to talk to you, tries to tell you that you can't get a restraining order or tries to talk you out of getting a restraining order, you're more than welcome to not listen to them. Just tell them you're getting one and leave it at that. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And she's like trying to call me back after all of this and like saying,
please don't get a restraining order. I'll move out. I can stay on the lease. I don't care. Whatever. I just don't want to have a restraining order against me. Da, da, da.
and I'm like, nope, this is happening. I'm gonna get a court date and we're gonna get a restraining order because I'm done. I can't have you acting this crazy towards me anymore. So the next day, literally the next day, I get a call from her saying that she's getting a restraining order on me. And I'm like, are you dumb or something? Like, is there a reason that you're trying to get a restraining order on me when I already filed for one? It's the same case, the same code. I don't know what's going through this girl's head. Like, she's obviously psycho, and her reasoning for it is, I don't even know. And but mind you, like, because when I pushed her against the wall to get her off of me, I left some scratch marks on her chest. It wasn't just some, it was a lot, but it's because it took a couple of times of me pushing her to get her off of me in order to be able to sprint to my room. So she actually had picture proof to be able to get this restraining order. And I understand now where she was coming from going and getting this restraining order, but at the time I was just so confused, and I was like, that's really stupid of you when, you know, we could just literally wait for the date and get the restraining order and this will all be done. But now I understand her reasoning, because she actually could get an emergency restraining order that just permits peaceful contact, and they would let her off the lease even if it didn't say that we couldn't live together, you know. But I didn't know that. The day comes and she's like all prepared, and she gets herself a lawyer and all of that, and it's just like the stupidest thing in the world. And I'm like looking at the judge like, I don't know what's going on or why she's doing this. And I had already dropped the fact that I wanted a restraining order, so all that was left was hers. And you know, this was after the fact that I had already figured out why she was getting this temporary restraining order or whatever. Once she got her name off the lease, she could have literally just dropped it, but she decided to go through with the court date anyway for whatever reason, and she hired a lawyer and had to pay tons of money for this, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. And the only proof that she had was the pictures. I'm just like, okay, you know. And the lawyer tries to like talk to me, and he like slides the picture across the table and says like,
You did this.
and I'm just like, out of self-defense, and he's just like,
No, you did this.
and I'm just like, objection, you know, Your Honor, he's not listening to me, irrelevant. I tell the judge that like, because of penal code whatever, I actually knew the name of the penal code at the time, that what I did was relevant, and if anybody was getting a restraining order, it should have been me, but I don't even want one at this point. And the judge goes, okay, well, it literally just sounds like you guys had one single altercation, and it sounds like you guys don't even want contact with each other anymore anyway, so there's no reason to issue a restraining order. We're done here. Releases us or whatever. This girl moves out and all is good. Anyway, you guys, that's just one crazy roommate story time that I've had. I was a little bit out of breath during this video. Not exactly sure why. Probably because of my endometriosis, and I'm feeling a little bit like I'm low on iron. So I'm gonna go take care of that. I'm really sorry about how everywhere this story was. I have a ton more stories about Ashley that I could tell you if you want me to tell them. So I'm more than happy to. I've got tons more stories to come in the future, and I've got a couple of ideas. I was thinking about making a yoga sequence for people who do art all day, even do a yoga sequence for before you do art. So I'm just letting you know, I've got quite a few ideas out there, you know, that I'm going to start doing eventually. But as of right now, it's all just gears turning in my head. So, I don't know. Anyway, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and don't forget to kiss that bell icon. Take a bite out of that moon and become a member of the Crescent family. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!